If you're a teacher or a child care professional, you'll probably be mandated to see it in order to maintain your licensing, or in the case of a school, your accreditation. That's the direction it's going. Reflecting on anti-bias education and action, the early years, which some professional associations that license child care professionals and accrediting agencies that accredit schools, K through 12, are now mandating for accreditation or licensing. Here's a little snippet. Oh, by the way, the backstory, I want to set this up, of course. This is a documentary that follows teachers at 2 West Coast preschools as they educate, in quotation marks, their students in a number of subjects.
Sure, educate.
Oh, huckleberries. Today, I wanted to introduce you to a new friend in our class. Well, this, huckleberries, is my friend Nash. It's their first day in our class. They're just looking around at all of you, and they're so curious to know who you all are.
Today was fun. It was really interesting, though, knowing going in, being like, I don't know what questions kiddos are going to have or what they're going to say, which is both like nerve-wracking, but also kind of exciting. It's that place of not knowing as a teacher and just being okay with that.
And the friend likes to ask the question, are you a boy or a girl? And Nash answers, I'm just a kid.
But kids can be boys or...
They can be boys or girls.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh.
And then later in the film, the young kids make Black Lives Matter signs and march around them in a preschool. The class also writes a statement supporting the Black Lives Matter movement, which one child reads to camera. The Black Lives Matter movement is a group of people who want to make sure that people of all skin colors are treated fairly. Black Lives Matter because black people are not being treated fairly, and that's not nice. That's the prepared statement that the kids are required to read at rhetorical gunpoint. By the way, the documentarian says this is not scripted. This is following actual teachers. These are actual teachers in their own voice, sharing their classroom experiences, like this gentleman.
Children need to feel safe to be whoever they want to be. And that is what's happening in the dramatic play area. They are acting out different ways of being in the world. In one of my first morning meetings, I bring a skirt that I like to wear. I tell the children that, I want to wear the skirt, but I want to make sure that I feel safe wearing a skirt in the classroom. And so I'm just a little bit afraid that someone might laugh or they might feel uncomfortable. So I just want you to know that sometimes I wear a skirt and it's really comfortable. I like it. I like to spin around in it. That is one way to use my own personal things that I like to do as a model for dramatic play. And so the
He's a preschool teacher.
That's sick. And he wears that for dramatic play. Guess what? It's not about you. It's about the kids.
Well, he likes to spin around in it and provide an example, so long as it's safe that he doesn't get ridiculed by any 3-year-old or 4-year-old.
Just stick to primary colors.
The state of K through 12 education. For more on this and other topics, please be joined by David Harsanyi, senior editor at the Federalist, Federalist.com, author of Eurotrash, Why America Must Reject the Failed Ideas of a Dying Continent. How are we doing on that score? David Harsanyi, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
We're not doing well. That's very disturbing what I just heard.
What do you mean? Just dramatic play, wear a skirt you like to wear. It's fun. You spin around and, tell the kids, don't make fun of me. What's
a lot of people think totalitarian governments stop people from participating in politics, but actually they make everything about politics. And that's what this feels like to me, where it has to be injected in from preschool. And, then state-run schools where you don't really even have a say in many states and parents don't have a say. It really is horrifying. It really is just horrifying to be a parent today. I don't know how young people do it.
Well, as you look around the country and you write about and think about these issues, we're trying to find models that can be replicated. And it seems like DeSantis has a model, even if you don't agree with every tactic he's taken. He's certainly engaged, and he's trying to drive some of this out and restore something like what sort of a non-politicized K through 12 education was once upon a time, or at least open-minded and discussion, not indoctrination of a particular viewpoint. Also, Glenn Youngkin in Virginia, and it's not just the governor there. In fact, that's the interesting thing, where yes, there was revolts at the local level, and then DeSantis picked, and DeSantis is a significant driver of it. In Virginia, just because of the nature of that state as compared to Virginia, it was, left center left parents in places like Northern Virginia, Fairfax and Loudoun counties that really drove this. Glenn Youngkin got on board, and now they're driving it together. I mean, are there better models than that when it comes to the state's responsibility for K through 12 education and addressing some of what we all see going on?
No, I think when you think about Virginia, it was actually maybe a bigger lift for Youngkin to win. Obviously, the state has turned purple, if not blue, frankly. And I think it was just sort of a revolt of the normies, just normal suburban people who saw the excesses of government interference and the ideological stuff. Had to do with the COVID lockdowns as well, but I think in many ways it also had to do with, sort of identitarian racist, curriculum and things like that. So, yeah, I think Youngkin's a great example of how you can work to bring in center-left people who are not on board with kind of the, I don't even know what to call it, kind of racist and just crazy, insane gender politics that have invaded our schools.
And the normies exist in blue states too, as you were mentioning with Virginia, but not just on this identitarian stuff, although this is connected to identitarianism, but like this story out of Culver City, California, where parents are pushing back against the elimination of honors classes there, right? Uh-huh. This whole part of the program of the left to eliminate anything that resembles meritocracy and anything that would separate kids. I mean, except by race, of course.
Yeah, which is crazy that the stress on our immutable characteristics and then throwing away our achievements is exactly the opposite, I think, at least, of what the ideal used to be for everyone here in this country, from MLK on for sure. And it's just nuts. So if you destroy meritocracy, then the state has to step in and then decide where everyone is and isn't. So isn't that just Marxism of a different variety? I think it is. I'm not saying that, these people are like Stalin and they want to have camps, but I am saying that we're headed in an incredibly dangerous direction. And I'm not I'm generally positive about America, but it's getting harder and harder to be that way.
The entrance of Nikki Haley into the presidential race and this siren song of identity politics that even some on the right can't resist. She seems to be one of them. All of this sort of brown girl rhetoric with that was attendant to her announcement. I want to see Tim Scott and politicians, some of these newly minted congressmen in Houston and Arizona, I think, younger minority congressmen, African-American gentlemen in Houston and Latino gentlemen in Arizona. I want to see the party be reflective, but I mean the using the lexicon of the left seems to me unproductive, actually counterproductive.
You see, I agree, but I think there's a better way for her and others to frame that, that argument, I guess, is to say, listen, my parents came here as immigrants, and this is a meritocracy because they just worked hard. They had a family, they stayed married, whatever, and worked hard because the system is great. And it's not about your color. But, they really lean in on the language of, quote unquote diversity and stuff like that. I don't know that it's going to be very productive. I don't think it really matters that much. I'm not that impressed by her in general as a candidate. Yeah.
Well, what did you think about her calling for mental competency tests for politicians over 75?
I think it's sort of a gimmick. It's not going to happen. I get why she's saying it, and she's not wrong. I mean, look at Joe Biden. It's frightening that he's in charge of the world's most deadly military, but I just don't think it's going to happen. I think maybe voters who put these people in need mental acuity tests, frankly, because we're constantly doing it. But anyway,
calling John Fetterman. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, I mean, and that has to do with the media as well, that hides what's going on with these candidates. It was clear that he should not have been running, and now, it's a terrible situation.
He's hospitalized again for depression. Well, not again, but he checked himself into the hospital for depression.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Maybe
but
if they didn't force him to run, he wouldn't have been this way. I mean, who knows?
Well, look, the important thing
and obviously there's nothing wrong with being depressed or checking yourself in. Obviously, I hope, yeah, exactly. But, the point is that everyone could see he wasn't okay to run, and yet, I don't know, his family, the media, the Democrats pushed him and attacked anyone who pointed out the obvious, right? So I think that, stuff is clear about that.
But the important thing is we know he's for fracking because he's for fracking. So as he said, he's for fracking. So just remember that. You wrote this hateful column called "Get Married, Have Kids, Stay Together, Mind Your Own Business." Why so angry? No, the point, the problem with that is, I mean, right? It seems fairly straightforward, but you're not allowed to mind your own business because that's just not the posture of the left. You're not going to let you mind your own business. So now what do I do?
Yeah, I think it's a big problem, and I need to dive in more and think about it. But there was once the model good citizen, a person who paid their taxes, who went to work, who had a family, who did all those things. And now the good citizen, it seems to me, young people think a good citizen is an activist, constantly putting their nose in other people's business, trying to compel people to live a certain way, sort of shaming people who don't think that way, and on and on. And that's not good citizenship. It's really anti-Republican in the American sense. And there was this thing on Vice television where they had a group of Asian kids or Asian young people talking about America, and one of them had some common sense, and the others had a meltdown.
Yeah.
So I sort of wrote this column off of watching that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was great. We played clips from that too and discussed it. The jackals that just swarmed this kid who was just saying things that a generation ago, maybe 5 years ago, would have been completely uncontroversial.
Yeah, one of the kids sitting right in front of him, what I learned later, and you might have known this, got into Stanford writing Black Lives Matters like 1,000 times in a row.
Oh my God.
And he's a son of like some. So
yeah. Meritocracy.
We're using our brains. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right. Oh, that's great. I did want to let you opine on this too. We talked a little bit earlier in the week. Clap on, clap off. James Clapper saying, doing a little bit of reputational rehab, or at least attempting to, as others who signed the famous letter saying the Hunter Biden laptop had classic earmarks of a Russian disinformation campaign. And Clapper correcting those who are critical of people like him, saying, we said it had the earmarks. We didn't know. You have to read paragraph 5 of our statement. We clearly said there we didn't know. And so, yeah, now you're saying he's lying, and that seems just very uncharitable.
Yeah, I mean, his story is completely implausible. He also said he didn't ever heard how Joe Biden framed that letter as sort of deflecting criticism. So 50, really powerful people didn't watch a presidential debate. They didn't watch 60 Minutes. They never saw the Politico piece and said, "Wow, that headline is really, misleading." Of course, it's just implausible. He's a terrible liar. He lied to the American people about domestic surveillance at one point. He's lying now. He's a partisan, and the worst part of this is that we can't trust anyone anymore. There's a huge vacuum of trust in this country because people like him are lying, and not lying to preserve American lives or anything like that, but lying for partisan reasons. And that's another huge problem.
And it's sort of emblematic of what we're talking about just in everyday life, too, among everyday Americans. Anthony Esolen writes about this beautifully. Look, if your existence is looking for ways to jackpot your neighbor, then you are not a good person. The good person is not looking to always try to cast somebody that they disagree with or just anybody, even if they don't disagree with them, but for their own sort of aggrandizement in a negative light. And that's what so many on the left, regular everyday Americans, as well as the powerful people and the TV people do.
Yeah, because they, again, I just think all of these things we're talking about are about deeper problems. We have a bunch of people in this country who think politics are a religion. They treat it like a bunch of religious zealots who can't live with the thought of someone else or their neighbor or someone in another state living the kind of life or thinking the kind of things that they disagree with. You can't have a country, you can't actually have a diverse country in that way, because diversity is about what you think and do as well as, the color of your skin or whatever. So, and that's just another deep problem here. What leftist policy isn't about compulsion? It just doesn't exist, except they say abortion, which I think is about something else. But, that's a big problem.
David Harsanyi.
I keep saying everything's a big problem.
Well,
all right, well, it is.
I don't know how else to describe him. Right. David Harsanyi, senior editor at the Federalist, Federalist.com. The book, Eurotrash, Why America Must Reject the Failed Ideas of a Dying Continent. David, thanks as always. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Listen to podcasts of Dan and Amy from the AM 560 mobile app. Download it today at 560theanswer.com/mobile.
Have you been struggling to find an easy, safe, and secure document scanning solution for Salesforce.com, Microsoft 365, SharePoint, or OnBase by